Good morning, welcome. Here we are, sat in the pits at Tsukuba in the Porsche, ready to head out on the track and warm up because I've turned no laps around here in this car, and that's kind of the point. The purpose of me being here is to hopefully show you and provide some tips and tricks for increasing your own pace, providing you with a structure for learning. If you jump out on the track and you find yourself driving round and round and not making any significant progress, hopefully I can help. It's all in the data, so that's what we will be doing. I use VRS data with their written permission to show you how you can use their data to improve your own lap times. So the process for me will be to get out, warm up, find out what sort of lap times we're doing, see how far off the pace we are, and go from there. So let's see if all the overlays work. That's a bonus because they've been giving me grief. I'm loaded into a VRS session, so on their software, click test drive. So I've got their conditions, I'm using their open setup, so we've got as much parity as we can. Let's go and see what we can do. Everything appears to be working, which is a bonus. This is a little ball ring of a racetrack. I'm sure we're all familiar with it because it's one of the free ones. I probably wouldn't want to drive anything other than a go-kart round here on a regular basis, but this is what we got to work with. Oh, yikes. That'll teach me to spend all of last night driving a car with ABS. Shame. Right, okay, as with this iRacing tyre model, the tyres are cold for the first lap, or probably two in this, so we'll just feel the grip out. I've got the telemetry recording. We'll get ourselves a baseline, find some braking markers, see what sort of lap times we can put down. Steering weight is too light, so I'll just sort that out before we start. Feels a bit better. Okay. So it might be hard to see on the screen, but there's some banking on the inside of the corners. So for me, the traditional racing line around some of these turns, this one's flat, but and turn one's flat actually, but turn two and the hairpin at the back, depending on how they count the corners. So here we go, uphill, flattens off to a plateau, really late apex. Try and straight line this. Here's where you can dive to the inside of the corner because you've got positive camber helping you out. The critical run through this tricky corner. I'm going to take a load of curb for now. We'll see what happens when we look at the data. Car wants to get loose through the left-hander, and then here we've got another bold turn. So you can actually run the car in, sort of clear the brake and run the car in a fraction harder than you would otherwise on a flat corner. And then the balancing act that is maintaining front grip, sending the car off into the final corner. You can use all the runoff without penalty. So as I say, I've not turned any laps in this car around this racetrack ever, I don't believe. So I'm simply, rather than doing a bunch of laps and me streaming, look how fast I can go, the purpose of me doing this is to sort of take you from cold first week, first laps out on the track, and I'll show you my process. I always encourage people to try different things. What works for you might not be what works for me. We're rocking a 56.1 at the moment. I didn't even look to see what the time was. I guess that's a ways off the pace, but just feeling the car out. Missed.
You're currently 0.5 slower than your best.
So we'll stop and have a look at what the VRS time is in a minute, and we'll have a quick recce round the lap. As I say, I have written permission to show you how I use their data, as long as I don't share the setup or show you the full track guide. My data is available through the UK team. I'm on there, and also my own Discord team. So if you're not an UKer, you can always click the link in Twitch, join the Discord, DM me your VRS details. If you find the VRS times too far, their understanding of the car, you know, you sort of need to chase a time that matches your level of ability, I think is maybe the best way of putting it. Wide. Week 12 of a season is probably not the best time to fiddle around with your brake pedal settings, but I did, in an effort to trail brake more smoothly. So for me, these first laps, the time isn't so important. What I'm looking to do, you can see down bottom left, the oh, that's too deep. I'm looking to find the limits, so play around with some different lines, get used to the braking point. Like that sector 2 was nearly 3/10 quicker, so I've had a horror show of a lap really, but the time is almost on pace with my fastest. For me, I think there's value in being able to lap. Obviously those black lines from the spin, if you come out the pits and you're constantly rotating, you're not learning anything. You're constantly, you know, it's fractured, disjointed. If you come out the pits and you're too slow, you're so far off the potential mark that probably isn't doing you any favours. So you know, I favour this nice sort of exploratory pace. Try some different lines, see what works, and then you just start tuning your brain into where to brake, the visual clues to where the line is. So we're 3/4 of a second up here. This is better. Temptation to charge the final turn. Resisted. Don't loop it on the curb. And that's probably something approximating a decent first effort. So my own process, and again, as I say, find out what works for you, is to do this. Do a few laps. I've put this silly screen in the way of all the controls, so you have to excuse me using the keyboard for all the replays. But let's just zoom out and down. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. There we go. I like to look at Chase View when I'm reviewing my lap, because I spend all my time in the car, obviously. I like to know where I am in relation to the white line, and that helps me, because VRS, as good a tool as it is, doesn't show you the line very well. As we go around the lap, you'll be able to see visually if you're wide, and then if you then correlate that to the data and you find out that that sector I was really slow on the data, well, if you've logged the lap in your mind saying, oh, I was wide at that corner, you sort of dismiss that as an anomaly. So let's have a butcher's. So up into turn 1. It's a late apex, but it's not that late. So again, if we see the data and sector 1's a bit rubbish, we know why. I like to dive at the camber. I'm sure you all know the track, but you can sort of see the camber here. If you do the conventional thing of hacking out from here, you sort of drop the car into the bowl, which for me doesn't help it turn. Long corner, patience required. Again, as I say, I'm running that curb. We'll see what Mr. VRS man does. Straighten the car up for braking. Again, there's another bowl here, so run it in round the inside. It's probably a touch wide on exit. So that, you know, as I say, this gives me the visual clues so that I can correlate that with the data. Using all the road on the way in. Got a bit squirrely in the middle. So there you go. That's an average starting lap, I'd say. So let's grab the VRSs and have a look. So he's doing a 53.8. I've done a 55.3. So we've got a chunk to find, which is fine because we've got to start somewhere. Oh, we also need to refresh this before it recognises I exist, which is a shame. Apparently there's all new VRS data coming out, so we'll see if it actually works a bit quicker. Right, here we go. I'm sure most of you are familiar with VRS, but here it is. It's a simple little lap, and we're 1.4 seconds off, so we've got some work to do this morning. But here is the things I find relevant and what I'm looking for, because there's a massive information here, and not all of it is relevant to the lap. So obviously we've got the track map looking somewhat phallic into turn 1, and the controls down here. I like this delta line because this gives me the difference in the speed I've been carrying compared to my reference lap, in this case VRS guy. And then these two, the time and the line and distance, are of no particular use to me personally. I want to know where my speed is deficient, and I want to know why my speed is deficient, and that comes down to the things that I have under my control, being the gas, the brake and the steering angle. So let's go have a look. So straight away into turn 1, we see he's the blue line, I'm the dotted line. We see he's building more brake pressure than me. As I say, week 12, changed my brake pedal, upped it from 50 kilograms on the sprints to 65. So, you know, maybe not the most sensible thing, but we'll work on that. But the other thing I can see here is my release is all over the place. It's a mogul downhill ski run, whereas he's got a nice normal downhill ski run. So this braking trace is much better, the blue line. It builds the pressure quickly to whatever peak pressure the car can take, and then a nice trail off into the corner, especially as the camber flattens off. You know, you go uphill to start the braking, and you can see I ran wide, and this is why I watched the video, because we can see from here, if you looked at this in isolation, you would think, oh, my line is wrong, but I know I missed the corner. So there's a huge time to be had there, but at the moment I'm not too worried. I'm braking in the right place. I can brake a bit harder because I'm going uphill. Building the throttle is similar, so we can work on that in just a moment. Into, I call that turn 1 and 2. Well, I don't see how it is, but there you go. Well, I'll go with their laps. So into 3, 3, 2, 6. If you can work out how there is 3 corners in that, then fair enough. But let's have a butcher's. So I've had a lift probably as I got on the dirt. Might be because it's early and I'm not paying attention. So here is what I'm looking for. If I click, the difference as these lines separate is the speed deficit. So 6Ks, 11Ks an hour. And then you can see here in the middle of the corner, my higher speed. I carry a slightly higher mid-corner speed than him. And that may well have affected my exit as well, and probably did, because as we come off the corner, you also see a speed deficit. So it's only into and off of the corner that's the problem. You know, got to start somewhere, I suppose. So we can see here he's blended out the throttle before lifting completely. I'm again not building the brake pressure enough, but my release is pretty good. So my initial look at the data, I'm simply trying to build up a picture of my habits on the racetrack and what he's doing differently and where the big problem areas are. So under the Dunlop bridge, look, here we see the time loss isn't huge, but here we see quite a difference. I've braked more in this particular instance. I've delayed the throttle. Our throttle trace is similar from here off as the lines, and in fact I've actually gained a bit of time coming off the turn, but I'm losing more than I'm getting back in the mid corner. We can have a cursory look at these basic lines to see we're on roughly the same point as we come over the curb. So I'll go to the video in a minute, but I expect that he is also running the curb. And then it's from here. I've probably slowed the car down a touch too much. I've coasted more than he has. You see this conventional trail brake and then building up of the throttle instantly. So maintaining the grip circle of the car through the corner and then off the corner is probably helping it turn. He's also used a bit more road. So we log that into the hairpin. Everything on this track looks phallic, doesn't it? That is somewhat disturbing. Right, so again, I've carried a bit more speed into the turn. I've lifted, similar brake, trail braking not quite so good, but we have a look at where the differences are. So on the approach to the corner, 10Ks, 10Ks, 11Ks. So this is what I've identified in this particular instance. This is where the line starts to deviate, and it's because I've lifted and braked a bit earlier than I have to. And I've also run wide. So need to focus on slowing the car down a bit more and a bit deeper into the corner. So working on the trail braking. Don't know about you, but I'm always good down the straights. And then turn 12, where I got a bit of a swapper on, but I'm actually not too far off the pace in there. So, you know, first look at the data. We're just looking for a few patterns. The pattern being, at the moment, I'm not getting into the corner as confidently. And in some places it's because I'm braking early, but I think largely I need to work on trail braking the car smoother into all of the turns. Actually carried a tighter line than him off the corner. So there we go. That's a quick cursory look at the data just to get some sort of idea of what's going on. Do I need that one? Right, so let's just have a quick go around the lap. Oh, I was paying attention to the sound fire. Right. I'd like you to start from the beginning. Okay. So he arcs the car into the corner, hugs the inside. Nice drive off the turn. Straight line this bit. Gives me some sort of reference to where he's braking. Runs the car out slightly in the mid corner. The camber will catch you as you exit there. Taking a similar amount of curb to me. Just that whole trail braking and grip circle thing. More committed, more positive into the mid corner. It's a tricky little racetrack. I'm sure we've all driven it before. The temptation to overdrive this place is huge. Actually probably lifting a bit earlier than I am. Working the steering wheel through the final corner. There you go, nice lap. So I've now got some reference to work with. I would say if you just drive round and round in circles, you know, our time is precious, our free time, and I think most people want to be better. And you know, if you don't have a process, it doesn't have to be a chore. You don't have to make a load of notes and a data engineer and all that sort of stuff. You just need some sort of plan of action whereby you're not just driving around in circles, because you'll end up doing the same thing all the time, and that's not going to help. That's what I use the data for. For me, the reference, I'm not looking to drive the car identically. I don't need all those graphs to be exactly the same. my style will be what it will be, and it's normally a bit smoother than some and a bit rubbish on the brakes. It's been at it 20 odd years sim driving, and that's the way it is, so might as well embrace it. Oh, yikes, cold tyres. Let's call that a duff set, and forget that happened, and maybe be a bit more careful into the final corner on cold ones. So really, I've not done enough laps at the moment to start working on the real minutiae, the real specifics. Morning, Pontus. How's tricks? So, all I'm really doing is trying to collate some of that information that we've learnt from watching his line, and the fact that I need to be a bit smoother on the trail braking and try and carry a bit more speed through the corners. So didn't catch me out that time. So that's the plan for this little run. Focusing on, as I finish trail braking, getting back on the throttle. Oh yikes, the car is loose through there. Goodness. Spot the guy that's been driving a GT car too much. Shame, I know. All you guys know this is the best kept secret in iRacing. I'm the sucker that's driving around with ABS and traction control. Okay, that felt deeper into the turn. To really finesse the pedals in this car. Try and, it's I don't know about you, but it's a perennial problem of mine, is I end up looking at the road too close to the race car. I think that's partly the reason for some of the spins. This track particularly draws your eye to 10 feet, 30 feet in front of the car. I think if you can remember to get your eyes up and down the racetrack, you go where you look. Clip the curb, squeeze the gas on. Right.
You're less than a tenth of a second off your best.
Go deep in there. Good drive out though. Get the car straight, you can apply more accelerator. Still coasting too much through there. Going to take a short shift. Be mindful of the black lines on the road. Get the car in. You can lean against the camber on the exit there, and if we don't fluff the final corner, we've taken quite a chunk off our lap time without really looking at any specifics, just focusing on our own technique. Still need to bring the braking marker back a fraction in there. Try and get used to, as you clear the brake with your trail braking, you apply the throttle to keep the car connected, keep the weight transfer that you've generated the grip with on the loaded side of the car. That's the goal. It's what the 7 and 8k guys that set these laps do better than most of us.
That puts you 0.37.
What did I say about braking a fraction earlier and then didn't do it? Although I got it stopped. Gained a bit on the way in, lost a bit on the way out, so, you know. Again, lean against the camber on the exit. This is where you need to keep the grip connected. There we go, that was better. Really have to watch it through there. Really just trying to be smoother with my trail braking and carry more speed into the corners. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm letting the line and everything that happens in front of me just happen naturally, because you simply can't work on everything at once or it just gets confusing. There we go, that's another 0.2. So I will now I've found a bit of rhythm. If I level out or if I can't go quicker, that's when I'll stop, have another look at the off-board replay, the chase cam, get some more reference clues as to where the car was wide and where I think I can, you know, where you sort of visually look and see where you can make improvements. Then you cross-reference it with the data. So look, we're going slower. We'll unleash one more, and if that is no faster, then we'll go and examine the data, see what's going on. Missed the curb on exit that time. Wasn't faster there.
You're now 0.6 off your best.
Starting to get used to braking harder into the face of the hill and then releasing the brake as you hit that flat plateau. Tricky braking zone, that one. You try and get the car straighter than I did when you hit the brakes, because there's a balance to be had here between murdering the tyres and getting the lap time out of it. Right, okay, for now we have peaked. So rinse and repeat. Let's pause this, find the lap. I don't know how I've managed to put these black boxes around the paint, but I have, and I need to sort that out. Right, so let's have a visual look at this one. Yeah, probably angled into the corner a touch early. It's just good to have reference clues. I don't watch the full tutorials from the iSpeed guys. Again, I know they all do it slightly differently, but for me, they're teaching you how they drive the race car, and that's not what I want from the data. I want to keep my style, and I just want to use their data as a carrot to edge myself closer. So we can see he was a bit wider, and he turned the corner a bit later. I apexed here, and I should be all the way around here somewhere. So I probably want the car another car's width out so that you've got the wheels straight as you're driving off the turn. So we'd expect to see maybe the gaps closed slightly from that hideous 0.4 on the previous effort to a bit closer, but you know, I'd still expect there to be a gap there. That felt alright and looked okay. Not using quite all of the road there. Really should be against the white line when you turn in, just to open the car up. So I need to work consciously on keeping the car a bit straighter coming out of here, I think. But again, we'll cross-reference that with the data. Missed the corner there. Balancing act between losing it and keeping the drive. And then that was much nicer. You can, as I say, you can lean on the exit. Maybe I can drop into the bowl a fraction later. You know, maybe I can just angle in from here, but it does get steeper as you get into the mid corner. Important run out of that corner. I mean, you know, let's face it, probably getting the run out of there staying on their back bumper through here and then absolutely sending it into turn one is the prime overtaking place. So I clip, I don't know, yeah, clip the inside curb again, but that was all right. I reckon he's probably unleashing the car slightly more over the line. So back to is that the data? Is that the data? Oh, I don't know. I'll have to reload it anyway because it will not recognise I've done the lap. So he's done a 53.9. I've got some work to do. 53.9. Who knew these 8 and 9k iRacers were good? Yes, it's not loaded my lap, has it? What have we done? 54.6. Honestly, I've tried uploading, changing the upload speed of the app, and doesn't work for me. Let's hope all this gets addressed in the new software. Come and watch John click buttons. Right, here we go. So we had a 4.5 deficit into the phallic shaped turn one in the first run, and straight away we're much better. So again, you can click here. For anybody not aware, these two lines, this delta speed line, they can be bigger, or the gap can be a lot wider and be less time. It depends on the length of the section as to how wide the gap is. So that's why I always click where I see a difference, and actually check what the speed difference is, because we at some sectors of some tracks we'd see a massive gap up here and it would still only be 6 k's an hour. So just be mindful of that. So look, probably coming off the corner, you can just about see here the blue line's slightly wider, as we've just sort of confirmed from watching the lap. So he's probably releasing the car off the corner a bit better. So he's carrying a few more k's an hour into the first turn. But what we're interested in is whether we've closed the gap. And straight away, you can see my braking point is much better. I don't know how you guys do it. I do a lot of, apart from places like Monza, and when you've got, like Sebring, where you've got absolute confirmed big stops and you've got cones and lines on the road and all that stuff, I tend to eyeball corners. I do it by rhythm. I do it by the rhythm coming off the previous corner, the gear shift, the rev range, all of that sort of stuff. So I'm not looking at a braking marker. I'm looking at the apex as I'm braking here, but yet we're coming off the gas at exactly the same point. I've still got this random, I need to do some leg lifts or something. Look at this. This is a somewhat ridiculous brake trace, but we've closed the gap, so we're doing better. And then you can see the thing they do a lot in these GT cars, the VRS Pros, they apply the gas initially to allow the weight to transfer, and this is all related to this trail braking. You trail brake the car to keep, so you've moved all the weight onto the nose. And I apologise if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but it's so vital that people understand the way the weight moves, because moving the weight forwards jams the front tyres into the road and gives them more grip. The trail braking phase is to release the grip without making the car ping back up without making the front of the car jump back up, because that takes all the weight off the nose, and then you turn the wheel, and what you'll find people doing is they turn and then they keep turning and they keep turning, and if you've taken the weight off the wheel, you can turn the thing as much as you want, and it's not going to corner. Very rarely do I get the wheel past 90 degrees. This is a bit different because the track's quite slow, but if you're constantly at 90 degrees in medium speed corners, you're probably not trail braking correctly, entering too fast, turning too quickly. You're overloading the available grip. And this is what this trail braking phase does. As you initiate the turn, as we can see here, as he starts the turn into the corner, and let me play it. So this trail braking directly relates to the turning of the car, and then in an ideal world and in usual circumstances, as you finish trail braking, so you've got right to wherever your apex is in the corner, that's when you want to shift that weight around the outside radius of the car. Where's the advanced stuff? Is that the one? Yeah, here we go. So this is a graphical representation of what's trying to happen. So the weight moves forwards as you brake, and then if you jump off the pedal, the weight will ping right back to the center of the car, and then you turn the car and the weight will move this way. The grip circle, or the traction circle as they term it, which you see on the Formula Ones and stuff, what you're trying to achieve with the trail braking is you hit the brakes and the weight moves forwards. You've used all of your braking, your tyres performance to brake. So in order to turn and make the grip move around the outside of this traction circle, you have to release the brake as you start to turn, because you've used all your tyre grip. So stay on the brake, turn the wheel as much as you like. You're going forwards. You're going in the direction you were going. So that's where the slow deceleration and trade-off happens into the corner. And what that allows you to do is have the weight of the car over the loaded side tyres, which means you've got more grip proportionally as you enter the corner. And this is what these top boys do better than the rest of us. Hey, look, I got back to the workbook and everything. So I'm just going to play it through and have a look at as he starts to brake and the relationship with the steering wheel. And then we'll stop labouring this point and move on. So there's the brake. The brake comes off as the wheel starts to move into the turn, trail braking all the way, and then back on the throttle straight away. And you can see that I'm basically doing the same thing, just not quite as well. And hence 2.9 tenths. So there you go. That's the sort of basics of the grip circle and the point of trail braking. Right, let's get up to turn 326 apparently. And again, same process. The line is small because the sector is the length it is. So we have a look, 6 kilometers an hour. I've closed the gap a fraction. I'm still faster in the mid turn. I'm losing less off the corner. So again, I'm just building up a picture. This is simply the facts. It's not right or wrong. I'm not looking to match this dude absolutely exactly, but I'm looking to try and minimize the time. So in this case, he's still blending out the throttle slightly before he brakes, which is unusual. And I'm lifting too soon, and I think the reason I'm not getting the car stopped and carrying this bit of extra mid-corner speed is this. He's holding his trail braking a fraction longer, although my line is better than it was. So there you go. That's what we're looking for. And you can see where we're both turned in the mid-corner. I've got a fraction more steering in it, probably because I've just not slowed the car down that last 3 or 4k. And he's even carrying quite a different line through the middle of the corner. So I'll be mindful of that, but the rhythm for this part of road, how fast I'm approaching this, is going to dictate how well I'm getting out of here. So for now, this is still my focus because this is a bigger area of weakness. So, you know, as we can see, he is turning in a bit later. We know I apexed the corner a bit too soon. Here we go, under the Dunlop Bridge. So much better. Only 19 of whatever those things are. So we can see I'm not getting off the previous corner quite as well. I'm still slowing the car down a fraction too much in the mid corner, and then I've still got a bit more speed. I'm carrying the car out a bit wider. It might have a knock-on effect to this sector, but let's take it in isolation at the moment. So once again, he starts lifting out the gas. That might just simply be his habit, his trait, because a lot of these guys are very linear with their accelerator. Here we can see a nice mountain and a reasonably quick trail brake, because it's just a little stab of the brake, 25% brake, just to move the weight transfer onto the nose to allow the front tyres to grip. I'm holding the brake a fraction too long. It's delayed me getting on the throttle. Although I've built the throttle slightly more, I've lost the time here, I would say, in that critical mid-corner phase. So, you know, log it, bank it. It's not a huge time loss, but we're striving for perfection. Right, here we go. Again, the lines are quite different coming in here. It's possibly a knock-on effect of me running slightly wider in the previous corner, although I'm not too concerned at that at the moment. As we saw when we watched my lap back from the chase view, I commented that I can probably turn into the corner a fraction later, and that's sort of confirmed here. The difference in speed, again, I'm carrying more minimum corner speed, so that's a habit, that's a trait of the difference between the two of us. So, you know, information, fuel for the fire. We can see here that he's taking a bit more corner speed in. My trail braking is a load better than it was, but this little extra bit here is where this gap grows. I don't know if you can see that. If you're watching on a phone, it's going to be tricky, but there's a little difference, deviation in the lines here, 6 k's an hour, and it's sometimes hard when you're away off the pace. It's easy enough to find the difference. It jumps out at you. It's quite obvious. When you start getting down to the smaller amounts, you need to be a bit more of a detective. So this little difference in the braking, and I've probably, if I can smooth this out like the blue line, I will probably match the speed on the way in. He's also been very linear with the accelerator. He's slowed the car down more, and that's gained him a load out of the corner. You'd assume you'd carry that all the way down the straight. That's conventional wisdom, but it's a half a tenth. You know, you'd take a half a tenth here, but the actual speed is decreasing as we get down the straightaway. So, you know, there's more than one thing at play at a tiny little track like this. His big old sweeping line and my line, you can see who's going to make the send it move up the inside, and that would be me. So there's maybe a slight difference at this place, more so than others, about the big open sweeping lines for hot lapping, second qualifying laps, and how you need to race this circuit, you know, creative defending and stuff. So probably more so than most places, practicing a couple of different lines here will be beneficial. Anyway, we'll head through the final corner. Look at that. So again, straight away, pretty good. Not concerned with this at the moment. We can see visually, we've brought the difference down by half, but we can see visually that there are 3 areas, and turn 1 might sort out turn 2. So I'm going to go out and focus on turn 1, which is that slightly wider turning, as we've identified here, and trying to smooth out the trail braking. And then this hairpin. So for this run, that's all I'm going to do. I'm much nearer the mark. I'm going to try slowing the car down a fraction more in the mid corner, because we see that at that hairpin and at that hairpin. And again, you know, I'm doing lots good already, but those are the areas. So turn 1 is the big focus, and then the other important hairpin. A note about data analysis. I've been looking at various data, Motec and VRS and iSpeed and stuff for a while, for, you know, many years. In fact, it takes a while to be able to learn what works for you, for understanding all of the lines and how they actually relate to your hands and your feet and stuff. But I would say persevere, ask questions. Yeah, the advanced stuff's great, isn't it? I've literally only found it recently myself. I do not know Dorian's track guide. No, Dorian, that's clever. I like that. Right, anyway, here we go. Let's go and be amazing. bit faster than the VRS one. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I use VRS because it's the popular and accessible tool, and you know, for me, there are loads of people that do amazing lap guides and they're super fast and stuff, but it's, you know, you need to be somewhere near their ability. If they're living with the car dancing at the rear and they're constantly making these super fine corrections, I need to turn it wider there. I think it, you know, it can be a bit intimidating to your average iRacer. I've always tried to show people a process to analyse what they're doing and to creep their own ability further and further up. And, like, you know, part of it is your actual ability on the controls. But I think if you understand what you're doing, so you understand the way the weight transfers and how that matters, and if you understand how to read the data and have a process, and then maybe it just comes down to a bit of encouragement. I try and constantly tell people, don't just, like, if you're just going round and round in circles, what are you learning? And if you've been iRacing a year and you're just going round and round in circles, how's that working out for you? Are you much quicker than you were before? Hey, thank you very much for the follow, man. Good to have you along. So, yeah, you know, maybe trying to approach it slightly differently. I'm doing that again. I broke it, but I don't have to pay for it, so let's head out. Yeah, you know, just a bit of guide and encouragement for all of those people, these VRS guys and these other people that can go quicker than them. They're in the, what, top half a percentile of all iRacers. That's pie in the sky for most of us, with the best will in the world. You know, I've been sim driving 20 years. If I was going to be a 9K alien, it would have probably happened by now. So I just want to enjoy the process of learning. I want to understand the way the cars work so that I can jump in anything. Basically, all these cars are the same in sim, whether it's open wheel or GT3. If you understand the dynamics and the fact that the weight transfers as you hit the brakes, and you are trying to move that grip around the outside of the traction circle, the grip circle, in the corners, and you do that through smooth feet. Yeah, absolutely. And this is what a lot of these track guides, I know what you mean about copying the fast guys, and this is what a lot of these track guides boil down to, and they're amazing to watch. People that can absolutely dance the car on the edge of its grip. But I can't go out and do that. I'm competent. I understand the theory. I've been soaking up all sorts of motorsport knowledge for 30 odd years. And I love the coordination dance of trying to perfect and smooth out all your controls. But the level that these guys can live with the car at and what I can do are too far apart for the data to be directly comparable. And I think this is where VRS becomes a good tool, because you can have teams, you know, as I'm sure you all know. So, you know, my data is in my own little team, which anybody can DM me with their VRS email and I will add you to the team. And with enough people, with enough of a collective, you find someone that's a second quicker than you, maybe half a second would be better around a little place like this. And you chase that, and you don't have to worry about the way they drive. As I say, you're not, you know, they might not be an alien, but if they're quicker at certain points of the racetrack than you, try and soak up why and minimise the time gap to them. And then when you've caught that person, or you've learned all you can from one person because they're getting through this final corner really well and turn 2 really well, or whatever, then you can move on to the next person. Or am I turning in a bit later there? Yeah, maybe. I think I still need to be a bit wider in there. Let's have a focus and try and not loop the car. Yikes. See, this dude might have the brake bias. a touch further back than I can cope with, but it might just me being a ham-fisted idiot. Right, wider turn in, slow the car down more in the mid-corner, allows me to plant the throttle. Bad lap, but green sector, so, you know, good bit of information. Oh, no. I don't like it. I think I've roasted the tyres. Right, let's get a fresh set and try and go faster. So, you know, for me, there's lots at play when you're trying to work on your own development. I think start with a good grounding of some basic knowledge of race car dynamics and weight transfer. And like, there's some really good books out there. The Skip Barber racing book that Skip Barber put together with all his driving professionals really goes into the importance of finding the line first, then finding the correct speed for the corner exit, and then only after you've found the exit do you then need to worry about moving your braking markers closer to the corner. I see so many guys, especially newer iRacers, and they charge at the corner. I will demonstrate, hit the brakes, turn the wheel, and nothing happens because you've just got everything all locked up and you've overloaded the tyres and all of that stuff, and it's a finesse, it's a dance on the pedals. You steer the car as much with your feet as you do with your hands, and your feet are what's used primarily to move the weight around, and then the steering wheel is what's used to move the traction circle around the outside of the circle, which energizes the tyres, which means you've got more grip. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, one fast lap is satisfying because you're high up the leaderboards, but being able to lap on a decent speed. Now, look, we've found this in all sorts of cars. We did quite a lot of MX5 driving around here, and it was exactly the same. Try and turn in a bit later. Have I made it? It was exactly the same in the MX5. It's possible to put in... Oh, I'm really... Talking and driving is not serving me well today. Yeah, you know, you can put in one fast lap, but the delta between the laps was huge. I think really, you know, as I said, there's also a difference in the line between the racing line round here and being able to defend and not have yourself opened up to being dive bombed all over the place. So it's quite a complex little ball ring of a racetrack, really. But you can use that to motivate yourself for different sorts of practice. At the moment, I'm trying to find my fastest lap. Once I've found the right line, all my visual clues are in the right place, I can then start working on a rhythm and see what rhythm I can get into. I can then start thinking, once I'm fully up to speed, about the fastest way around the track whilst also not leaving the door open. That felt better. Oh, shame we got the grass on the exit because that was going well. Little wide into there. Any tiny mistake around this place and you get hammered on the time. Try and turn in from a bit wider. Commit to the throttle. That wider line there is definitely working. It's just a case of putting it all together. And as I say, at this stage, I'm not looking to put in record laps. What I'm trying to do is learn. I always say to people that if you are doing the same thing is going to happen. So if you're trying to improve and you use the same brake marker or the same brake pressure, you need to challenge yourself to do things slightly differently as you're lapping, and log what works and what doesn't. And then, you know, I call them puzzle pieces. I think you build your own picture of what fast is, or what the fastest and most consistent way round the track is for you. Balance the car. Right, let's see what we can do.
That puts you 1.2 seconds off your best.
Spot the exit, get the car straight, drive it off the corner. Good exit. Let's not lock the tyres in here. Maybe not enough weight transfer, it just slid in the mid corner. Live with the rear being loose. Turn it in a fraction later. Probably can still turn it in a fraction later than that. Got a good run off the corner. It's definitely time to be had in that last corner. I just need to find it in the first one now. Concentrate on the smooth steering and the trail braking. Pick the throttle up. Get ready for the rear to dance around.
You're less than a tenth off your own pace.
Oh, that felt better. Felt like a better line. The car came back to the apex later in the corner. Just that fraction of patience in the mid-turn. Or probably a bit too much coasting in there. Take the early shift. Live with the rear. Turn it in a bit later. Pick the gas up as hard as you dare. See if we can lap consistently like this and not burn the tyres off it. And I don't feel like I'm scrubbing the what sits out of the tyres. That would be some decent race rhythm, I feel.
You're currently 0.16 off your best.
But that's quite a bold line into turn one. You get the car straight for the exit, but you'd have a guy up the inside of you. That braking zone's tricky because the car is... You've got the front wheels turning as you're hitting the brakes, so you have to modify your brake pressure. Less sliding, still not happy through there, but missed the bowl. And you can see when you miss dropping into the bowl, and look, there you go, 4/10, tiny mistake, what, metre wide. So precision is going to play an integral role to getting around this racetrack well.
That puts you 0.47 off your best.
Alright, I've started eyeballing that bit of tarmac that's on the little join of tarmac that's on the outside of the track as I head into turn one. That's given me a bit of a reference marker. Lost the rhythm through under Dunlop. Let's try not to... Fine line between dropping it into the bowl late enough to hook it round the corner and missing. If you've got your outside wheels outside of that bit of positive inside camber, you're just going to push wide. Oh no, slid too much in the mid corner. So I think what I'm going to favour, because the line, the opening up the line into turn one is just inviting trouble. in a race. I think I'm going to favour something slightly tighter on the way in, but still trying to get the car to rotate to a later apex. Yeah, it's all about the release of the brake pressure around here. As you start turning the wheels, as they drop in and out of the cambers and stuff, having enough brake pressure to continue retarding the car's speed and keep the weight transferred, but not locking the wheels up.
You're now 1.4, slower than your best.
Probably a bit too much brake pressure as we got into the middle of the corner. Just try and get the car loaded on the tyres before we brake it. That was much nicer. Pick up the gas. Used a bit more road that time, probably took too much curb. It's frantic enough by yourself round here, isn't it? It's going to be fun and games with a pack of angry Porsches. Porsche. Morning, El. Yeah, it's a bit of a handful in this beastie.
That puts you 0.44 off your best.
I reckon 250 shifter go-kart and this place would be amazing. I've run a few laps now, and you know, as we've been discussing, the times are a bit, there you go, yeah, definitely building the pressure slower as you're in the transition. I'm going to bring the car into the pits and we'll have a look at the lap run and the tyre wear. See exactly what we're doing to these boots. Oh, is that lap 29 all told? Be nice if that reset itself. Right. Hello. Treacherous pit lane. Our survey says green. I don't know what that means. Not too bad, I guess. Right, I'm going to change for another car, grab another set of boots and have a go at a faster lap time, which I guess is going to come in the MX-5s. It was after the tyres were warm, it was the first flyer. And then beyond that, it's a bit, you know, it's a bit like a NASCAR oval, this place. You just get slower and slower every lap. And I guess the trick is going to be minimising that time loss, driving smoothly. Taking too much of that curb now, I feel. That's a much better line into there. Look, a tenth in the context of this little place, a tenth is not to be sniffed at. Does it look like I'm still carrying a bit too much mid-corner speed? I mean, that's been my problem entirely on the data so far. Or have we got it into the bowl? Just about. If I can hook up the rest of the track and still get the final corner, the penultimate corner right, it's definitely a decent improvement. But realistically, when you are wobbling around so much in the speed delta, I think I'd be better served trying to work on a rhythm although we are up, so let's see what we can do. Get the car further over, open the corner, a bit cautious maybe, I don't know, used all the road. Oh, the consequences were disastrous. So look, I've done a best of a 54.6. I've got my optimal to a 54.4, but realistically now, you can pound round and do 5 million laps if you want. But realistically now, this is what's becoming important, isn't it? The run. So we did a 55.4, 55.8, then we dropped into the 54.6 and a 7, 55.0, 55.5. So there's too much variation here. So I think realistically, and I'm sure there's going to be a few people locking up and missing the apexes and giving you opportunities round here. There'll be inevitable door banging. So the focus of this run is going to be to back off just a fraction. Just roll the car in a fraction smoother on the brakes, and let's see if we can do a raft of 54s. It's one of the other things that people say about the VRS data as well. They've commented, shall we say, that they don't do long runs, so they give you the headline time, which is, you know, looks great, doesn't it? Yeah, look how fast this guy can go. But what are the ramifications of him doing that on a place like this that burns your tyres up over a over a stint? So let's see what we can do. Try not to spin, because that would be bad. I'm also going to take the slightly more defensive line into there, a la race trim, race mindset. It's like the last corner at Long Beach, isn't it, round some of these, trying to get the take your hand off the wheel to get the car turned. Oh, smoke the tyres on the first lap. Oh no, the pressure of the race start's got to me, and I haven't even done a race start. What's that all about? Life imitating art, is that applicable? Anyway, focus, laser focus. There we go. And drive it off the corner straight. Our opening salvo is not good, but let's settle into a rhythm. Smooth on the controls. And I think this would serve you well in a race, because when all is happening around you, when you've got people in your mirror and the spotter calling inside, outside and all of that sort of stuff, if you've practiced this nice rhythm, if your hands and your feet know what they're doing and you're just driving to a nice steady rhythm, you'll be able to devote more of your brain power to the fight, to positioning on the track, to is this guy going to cut me off, you know, all of that stuff. And that's where I feel backing off just a fraction just gives you that bit more mental capacity. And if you can drive a tenth slower but do that through the whole race,
Currently 0.14 off your best.
I think we'll take it. So let's see what we can do. The aim is to not run wide, not over excite the tyres, but also not deviate from a lap time too much. And I don't know about you guys, I'm a drummer, so I like doing my driving on a rhythm. And the rhythm of the way you turn the wheel, the rhythm of the way you accelerate, all of that sort of stuff, I think that helps the consistency. So the engine's at the same note when you get to the end of the straight every time. You might not be to the millimetre on the same piece of road all the time.
0.5 off off your best.
0.5 is too much, isn't it? That's just be smooth. Look through the corners. I'm doing that whole thing of looking in front of my face again. Oh, car slid too much through there. Now we have to work the tyres to get it back online. Right. Just a note about the Delta bar as well. I know a lot of drivers drive with this black and red bar on, the red and green bar on, which
Currently 0.7 off your best.
I've got the little box, as you can see, next to my face, but that's there just for sector reference. I find chasing a bar is another distraction that takes your eyes off the road. I mean, as it is, and as we know, I'm already looking too close to the bonnet of the car. I think, you know, we're all trying to get through corners as fast as we can every time we get to them. We might not achieve it every single corner, but especially if you've got the whole thing as a delta lap time, if you're looking at 6/10 down and you think, right, I'm going to make those 6/10 up in the final corner, well, that's not going to happen, is it? Let's face it. You're already going through the final corner as fast as your understanding and ability tells you you can.
That puts you 0.9 slower than your best.
Fine with the bar set to all time set to... Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you end up chasing your tail. I don't like the delta bar. I think you should focus on one apex at a time, and you drive that corner on its merits when you get to it, which is again why I'm an advocate of learning about weight transfer and tyre loading and grip circle, and, you know, getting a bit of theory down. Because if you learn with these parrot fashion track guides, here's my analogy. You can learn language of foreign text, and you could learn it so well that you'd speak it with all the right inflection, and you could even pass off as a native. But you do all that work and you still don't know what the language is. You just know how to speak that one paragraph.
Currently 1.2 slower than your best.
That's what I find those lap guides are. They're teaching you to turn at this blade of grass, you know, and they're amazing entertainment. But in terms of your overall progress and development, you should be judging each corner on the merits of what happens as you get to it. You might not drive the car like the guy does. You probably won't be on the same track conditions always. So if you learn a bit about the language of the sim, the way the weight transfers, understanding what trail braking does. Our lap time variation is awful, isn't it? Let's gloss over that. I think that's where it can open up a whole world. You know, I get bored. I like jumping. I was driving GT cars yesterday. I'm driving this today. I'll be in an F3 car tomorrow, because it's basically all the same. What I'm trying to achieve with my weight transfer, with maximising my line, with my vision, with my smooth steering, with my data analysis, it doesn't matter what I'm driving. The physics of iRacing are what they are. Formula cars are a bit different. They lower centre of gravity, more immediate, can arc into the turns more. The fatter, heavier cars require a bit of patience when you're transferring the weight and stuff, but the basic principles are identical regardless of what you're doing. Right, let's try and put together one lap, and then let's see what our lap time variation is.
0.7 off your best.
just caught the front, just locked the front as I went in. So yeah, the lap time's there to be had still, but it's not easy. How do I turn off the... is it... oh god, I don't know how to toggle the delta bar, but the... this doohickey is the tab box,
1.0 seconds off your best.
where you can tab it on and off. There's probably a thing in the settings to turn the delta bar off. And I always have this on... See, there we go. Let's go through them. You've got all-time best lap. Well, that's irrelevant because of the track conditions. All-time optimal lap. Optimal lap's pie in the sky until you get there. All-time optimal sector, not interested. Comparison lap, not interested. Comparison sector. Session best lap is what I leave it set on. That's what I'm interested in. What is going on in front of me right now. Let's have a quick look for the delta bar setting. Split time. There you go. Display delta bar. It's in the options bit. Toggle that on and off. And then you can have this preset to session best lap when it pops up. Happy days. So let's have a quick look at the run and compare it to the previous run. So we're in the 55s. The delta here is huge. If you can do better with your delta, then good on you, because it's the same for me in the MX-5. The focus and concentration required to maximize every traction zone around here is tricky. So I got into the 54s once, then I'm straight back into the 55s. I think I'd be happy if I could keep it under a 55.5 realistically, but this for me is where the sort of innate level of skill, maybe it's just the number of hours that they practice, these VRS guys and these top 1 percentile guys, they hit everything perfectly every time, you know. And I think that's partly their level of practice, it's partly their natural talent, and I think that's why it's hard to go chasing that stuff sometimes. I think Duncan, for me, it's depending on what your current level is and what works for you. You know, I do things the way I do things. I've built that process up over the years. I would just encourage people to try different stuff. If I know all these tracks intimately, I've raced around these tracks for thousands and thousands of laps in all sorts of cars over the years. What I find useful is this. If you go into the full detail, I just want to... Why you keep muting? What's with you? I just want to look at the lines. Find out where the guy is, where the guy's lines are, where he is on the track. I'm at a stage of my iRacing career where you name the car and name the circuit, and without being on the track, I can talk you round all of the points I'm looking at, where I turn in, what gears I'm in, round every track. I'm aware that we've got a lot of new to racing people, and a lot of people are iRacing that don't watch racing, and that's new to me. I've never come across so many people that aren't, 30-year veterans of watching Le Mans and V8 supercars and Formula One and. So they're coming blind to these tracks. So whatever works for you is the best way of doing it. But I would say, if you're going to go into these track guides, just take what they're doing with a, take it not with a pinch of salt. That's the wrong way of putting it. But just be mindful that the way in which a person drives the car may not be the best way for... Oh, that's embarrassing. It's the brown bumper, isn't it? That's what's doing it. Look at it. May not be the best way for you to get the car round the racetrack, which is why I like to go back to... oh, look, I'm just going to get to learn this, and they're going to change it, aren't they? Tips on what curbs to avoid. Yeah, no, fair enough. Just can't find the time to do it that way. Yeah, again, there's always a balance to be had, isn't there? How much free time one person has, and this is always going to be the tricky point of iRacing. There are people that do no practice, but they want to race. They've paid their sub. They're allowed to race. They jump on, and some weekends feels like your sole job is not navigating a race car. It's purely idiot avoidance. But this is where this stuff, for me, comes into its own, because if you've plotted your way around the track, and by doing this, by constantly working on your own deficiencies, like I say, I'm not looking to match this guy exactly, but I know as my data gets closer to him, he's right at the limit. He does the track guides for this car every weekend. I've probably driven it for less than 3 hours in total since it was made. I probably spent more time painting it than I did driving it, but I'm looking for constants, and this data, I do what I do on the pedals, and this data will show me this. My trail braking isn't as good as it needs to be. So regardless of what I'm doing, whether I'm racing, whether I'm practicing, I'm constantly trying to work on that. On a new track, you don't feel comfortable going into a race until Saturday and Sunday, but then you're starting to enjoy it. Yeah, see, again, that's just an accumulation of knowledge, isn't it? Like I say, I've been at this for years, and I've been driving GTR and all the other sims. So I know my way around all these tracks. I've seen most of them for decades on the TV as well. So, that's where what works for me and my current level might not be the same for you. Yeah, well, Elle makes a good point, actually. The practicing versus racing thing. This ties into this data. Good point, well made, Elle. There are two parts of the brain. Now, I'm no sports psychologist, but I do watch a lot of people that are good at this stuff. There is the conscious and unconscious part of your brain. And when you are trying to learn something new, which is what all this is, we're trying to examine our habits and change them, you have to turn on the conscious part of your brain. So you have to think about what you're doing. As I'm driving around, I can see my trail braking isn't so good and I'm losing time. I can see that my brake trace is a bit wobbly and I'm losing time. So as I'm driving around, I'm constantly thinking to myself, right, I need to modify my line slightly there. My trail braking isn't as good as it needs to be. So that's where I have to have my brain switched on, but that's slower. I'm slower to react because I'm approaching this corner here and I'm going, right brain, you need to do a thing different to what you always do, to what your subconscious brain tells you. So that is what makes the process of learning frustrating at times and a bit disjointed, in my opinion, because you're trying to change your natural habits. If you constantly pick the kettle up when you make a cup of tea, that's probably very English of me, with your right hand, swap to doing it with your left hand. It's not natural. If you're thinking about it, you can pick it up with your left hand. If you are thinking about something else or someone's talking to you, you'll go back to whatever your habit is and you'll pick it up with. That happens in racing. And I feel this is where the practice racing ratio is critical. But again, back to the point of people only have so much time. It depends what you're trying to achieve. But if you, I clicked off it. If you have been able to improve your data trace, whatever it is, you might charge the corners too hard, so you might be needing to bring your brake back. You might cross over your brake and your throttle too much, like I still do, still working on it. You might not trail brake. Whatever is causing you the biggest loss of time, if you practice and, like follow my process or a similar one that works for you. So you watch the lap, you go out, do a few laps, watch the lap back from the chase cam, go and confirm what you've seen with the data, go out and try and be better. you'll know that you've nailed it when you can jump into a race, watch your data of the first few laps of a race, and you haven't just reverted back to your old habits. And I think what people can get stuck, and loads of people get stuck in their iRating. They can't progress. And I think what happens is they might start with all the will in the world and say, right, I'm going to get better. And they do some practice and they work on their habits and they're diligently looking at the data and all of that sort of stuff. And then if you have practiced 2 hours, but you then spend 3 hours racing, you've not spent enough time to lock in the new habits. You can do it in the middle of a practice session when your conscious brain is turned on. But the minute you get into a race and it's all going off around you, you revert to type. So you know you've changed your habit when you look at your data in the first few laps of a race and you're doing it better. You don't need to be doing it perfectly, but you want to see a curve, don't you? You want to see an improvement in your ability. And being able to work on that, and that's where everybody will be different. What you're prepared to do, what you're able to do, how quickly you can change your habits. I've been sim driving 20 years. I'm well set in my ways. I know my way around all the tracks, but you try telling my feet that have been doing this for thousands of hours to do something differently, and then do that when there's 30 cars around you in a race. That's not easy. The newer you are to iRacing, the easier it will be for you to lock in good habits and to change your bad habits, the less time it will take you. But you've got the added complication of not being overly familiar with all of the tracks and things. But, you know, that for me is where the practice racing ratio becomes critical. You have to practice more than you race if you want to get better. If you're just looking to have a laugh, that's fine. You know, you take from it what you want. Oh, sorry, I have remembered the other point as well. The other point of that is once you're doing this correctly, once you're loading and unloading the tyres and you're smoothly transferring the weight, you're saving your tyres, you're better, you're just doing all the fundamentals better. You have a more fundamental control of the car. Once you're doing that subliminally, subconsciously while you're racing, you've got all of your focus on, is that guy going to crash into that guy and turn in front of me? And you'll find the better iRacers and the guys higher up the rankings, they are seemingly blessed. The Red Seas part and they drive through the middle of all these things because they're not worried about what they're doing. They understand that their inputs are natural, they're instinctive. So all of their focus can go to up the road. You know, what's this guy about to do? This looks like trouble. Do I need to back off here? Can I dive under? You know, all of that brain power that's required. So, you know, there's a lot at play here. There's not just learning to navigate the racetrack, whether it goes left or whether it goes right. I'm going to head out and attempt to lay down a more better lap. More better, more faster. More spinning, more crashing. So yeah, you know, so that's you know, that's why practice can be disjointed, because I'm now in the car, rather than just doing what my eyes are telling me straight to my feet. I'm saying, right, smoothly trail brake. I need to be wider here. I need to be conscious of this. All of that slows down the connection between the eyes and the feet. Gonna be fine. Weight forwards, trail brake, pick the grip up, don't let the rear follow the front, hard into the face of the hill, lift off, give the car back its turning grip, don't excite the rears too much. See, all of this stuff, and like, talk to yourself if it helps. I think one of the common things people do is they know they've got a trail brake, and you might even now be starting to understand the ramifications of that, but they end up doing the same thing, too linear. So you come on the pedal softly because you know you've got to come off the pedal softly. Oh, sorry, thank you, well done. You do have to keep an eye on me. You know, barely competent. Maybe that should have been my Twitch name, barely competent. You do need to... oh, what was... Oh, that's thrown me completely. Yes, you know, just
You're now
talk to yourself.
Slower
Oh,
than your
brakes.
best.
Yeah, that's right. You know, if you look at your brake trace and your comparison lap, whatever it is building the pressure quickly and then releasing it slowly, and you've got into the habit of releasing, of building the pressure slowly because you know you've got to release it slowly. So, you know, the curve is the same going up or down. Talk to yourself, whatever works. I find something in the sound, so bang on the pedal, slow release. If that's what works for you, and if that's what helps while you've got your conscious brain turned on, lock it in so that you can do it automatically. And you want to get to the point where every time you hit the pedal, it's bang on, slow release. And whatever you need to tell yourself or do to make the action repeatable and automatic
Puts you 1.9 seconds off your best.
is what works. I can't tell you that. I can tell you what works for me. I can tell you what doesn't work for me. I can't tell you the best way that you can go about it though. Look round the corner, John. Don't excite the rears. Get the car over. Oh, we must have been perilously close to the grass turning in there. Too much gas on the exit. It's swapping ends. Now I'm chasing my tail. So what I've learned throughout this session is out of that corner back there, the car will accept a much higher throttle percentage without exciting the rears. I've learned that I have to be like eggshells through that final corner, or the back's going to try and
You're now 0.8 off your
swap
best.
with the front. And even though the times are a bit all over the place, as they often are here, I'm trying to lock these things in to my permanent muscle memory so that when I've got a load of guys alongside me, I'm not flustered and I hit the throttle too hard coming through that final corner and end up taking 16 people out the race. That's probably never happened either. Let's drop into the bowl, bleed off the pedal. All this stuff you have to tell yourself consciously until you do it automatically. Hard, isn't it? But therein lies the beauty of our chosen hobby. It's, you don't complete it in 50 hours.
You're currently 0.6 off your
We
best.
constantly chase perfection. We will never achieve perfection. Lewis Hamilton talks about it, you know, the motorcycle racers talk about it. No one's ever done a perfect lap. You can always go faster. So there's infinite replayability. Right, let's get the weight transferred. Let's drive the car off the corner. Get the gear shift done early. Balance the throttle. Oh, slid a bit in the mid corner. Obviously the fundamentals, you can brake harder in a straight line when the wheels are straight. You have to release the brake if you then want to turn. We all know this. The fundamentals are the same, just how you go about it differs slightly
Puts you 0.10
depending on the
slower
radius
than
of the
your best.
turn, the camber of the corner, the state of your tyres at the time. See, where I was locking up all the time into there, I'm now building the brake pressure slower because I've got some wheel in the race car. I'll try clearing the brake, seeing if that helps. Helped on the way in, didn't help on the way out. Can we get the time back? Wheel straight, tip in a bit later. Probably still not slowing the car down. Oh, quite enough in the mid corner. That was too much throttle. Keep the weight on the nose, transfer the weight to the rear, keep it on the side of the car.
That puts you 0.28 off your best.
wide. Yeah, well, I think I'm a touch Tsukuba'd out, to be honest. It's like a washing machine, isn't it? You can do 100 laps in an hour. The maths doesn't quite... That's, you know, don't go into the maths. You know what I mean.
You're now 0.6 off your best.
So, I suppose that brings me to the other point of, if you're ploughing around learning nothing, I mean, if you're learning your race rhythm, or if you need the laps, then there's some value in you lapping. But if you start to get a bit saturated, you start pressing too hard. I think the natural thing is to dive into the corners too deep. Yeah, the GT3s are too big for this place, aren't they? I mean, it's a bit the same for this thing. It's a good track in as much as it's really difficult to maintain a good delta between your lap times.
You're currently 0.5 slower than your best.
And it's really tricky to put together, even though it's and it's short, so you get to repeat the actions. You know, helps with the trail braking. Oh, got to slow down. Yeah, the Skippy's fun. The MX-5 was fun through here.
Slow down a bit if you don't want a penalty.
So let's have a quick look at that run. So, you know, personally, I've reached the waffling philosophy stage and just turning laps. So I've gone back to my unconscious brain. So let's, for the sake of interest, take that 55.1 and let's just go and see. We can see when I was being conscious of what I was doing. Let's see if while I'm waffling rubbish, I've actually learned anything. Wow, that's a lot of things. So many, look at me, shouty GT cars. Right, quick refresh so it brings the data up. And go. And now, thank you. So we'll compare it to, dude, what are we looking for? 55.1 last lap. There we go. So you don't always have to look at your fastest lap. You can see if you've learned a thing. So here we go. Back to the big time loss in the first corner. And it's the exit by the looks of things. 6K's in on the way in. So I'm now actually turning in. This will be more representative of my unconscious pace. So I'm now turning in a fraction wide and still not making the apex. And again, the trail braking is a bit smoother, but you can still see this little blob here where I've not trail brake the car smoothly, and I'm going to play around with the pedals in the off season. And then this whole grip circle, he's just coming off the trail braking as he's building the throttle, and I am coasting. I take all the weight off the car. That works in an MX-5, but it's sort of directly related to the car running wide. The point of which I've increased the brake pressure as I've got to the mid corner, realised I've not trail braked smoothly enough. So this is all stuff that is not fixable in a moment, and may take months of me consciously working on it to improve it. But I need to be aware of it, and when I'm in the mood for doing this sort of practice, then I'll work on it consciously. When I just want to kick back and have fun, because it is our hobby after all, then just drive as you would normally. You can't spend your life doing this, it'll drive you mental. Let's have a butcher's into this corner. Right, so the time is big, and I've probably bound the car up a little too much on the way into the corner, but I'm not locking the brakes, and this is better. This is already much better. So I'm maybe lifting a fraction early, but the curve is better. I'm still slightly shaky coming off the pedal. So again, you know, you can compare yourself to yourself. Compare your best lap to, I don't know, what, an average of all your other laps. There's no point in taking one that you've completely blown, but you know, if you do a long run and you find a couple of laps that are within a couple of tenths or a couple of hundredths, take those and have a look at them and see what's going on. So here, I've lost a bit of time. Felt like I've not been getting through here as well as earlier, and I started off getting through here quite well, and herein I think lies some of the frustration and the difficulty in trying to drag your own performance up, because in consciously trying to make other sectors of the track better, this has got worse. And in fact, what I am going to do is I'm going to compare, I've gone back too far, I'm going to compare my best lap with that lap rather than Blokey's lap. I presume I can do that. Let's assume I can do that. Is that my fastest lap? 54.7. Double check. 54.6. 54.6. It's probably the one that says stint fastest, I'd guess. And then let's go down to so look, here we go. We've got all sorts of information available. You don't just have to chase VRS Guy. You can use them as a guide to try and home in on the ultimate lap speed. But then this is an interesting study in whether you're improving. So I'm not getting through turn one as well as him, but look, here's my natural line. This is the line I drive, because it's identical between my best lap and my worst lap. They're half a second apart. My best lap is the blue one, the dotted line is the worst one. We can see the same sort of traits. I'm slightly less ropey on the trail braking. I'm still coasting on both of them. I picked the throttle up almost identically. So that's why the time loss is negligible. Into this corner, quite a different approach. Actually lifted earlier in the faster overall lap. Somewhat difficult to pick that apart. Obviously went in a bit faster. Good morning, thank you very much for the follow. So we're just going around to see what the difference is and whether I've learned anything from my fastest lap to my most recent lap. This might help you keep an eye if you're really not consistent and you're struggling a bit with working out why that is. As I said earlier, I've done literally thousands of laps, probably in almost all the cars around all of these racetracks. I've worn a groove in these places. I'm obviously still not perfect, but what I do may be much more similar to what you do. The way I pick the throttle up, where I brake, how I brake, the way I turn the wheel, all of these graphs are much more similar. If your line is deviating, if you find, look at your first lap, look at your last lap, look at your average lap, whatever works for you. If you find your line is hugely different, you need to work on your line. You can do that by driving around slowly and getting reference points. If you're watching from chase view, and the reason why I watch from chase view is I'm looking for, always resets itself. Ooh, why I oughta. Right, anyway, I'm looking for this. Am I against the white line? If you're not using all the road, I mean, this corner arcs in so much that it's not absolutely vital, but if you're not arcing into the corners from as wide as possible, you're making the corners tighter than the next guy. Sort the line out first. So if we go back here, if you see a variation, and all right, this corner isn't the best example because in this particular case I came off much tighter, even compared to VRS guy, but you can see the line I'm driving is really similar. Be that good or bad, it's similar. If you're deviating massively from the line, just one step at a time, plot your way around the racetrack. You can do that slowly. So, you know, like if you need to open this corner up, so I can say, right, okay, I'm all the way over the curb, so the car's where it needs to be. What does that look like? And you have to excuse me having to click through them. There it was. So that gives you the visual reference from in the car. If you're struggling to know where the edge of the racetrack is, just spend a bit of time. It'll only take 10 minutes and go around and say, right, okay, so I know that I'm not off the road here, and get rid of that. And, you know, just look where the car intersects the racetrack. Say, okay, that's good. Really must sort this out. I think I can do it with a controller, can't I? But anyway, find a more conventional corner like coming out of here. As you turn left, you're looking to maximize the road. Now, I know I can be a bit further over and should be. So clearly my visual cue isn't great. So let's go back into the car. So I've now got my visual cue. I know that the white line is not even intersecting the rev lights here. I can probably go as far over as the green line. And by spending a bit of time working this stuff out, it will become, by doing it with your conscious brain, it will become more natural to you, and it will become part of your subliminal stuff, and it will just be what you do. And when you're plotting your way around the racetrack, when you're turning in from white line to white line, and you know, let's bear in mind that not every racing arc takes you completely out to the white line, but like, you know, as we're braking here, cars on the white line, I can probably use a bit of the green, but you know, go give yourself the visual clue. So, you know, that might help you. But yeah, if your line is variating, if that's your biggest problem, my biggest problem is the subtleties of the trail braking. I understand the way the weight transfers. I know what I'm trying to do. If we go to the advanced stuff and we look at the traction circle, keep an eye on this stuff. You know, if you're releasing the grip, if your own plotted line is significantly different to the VRS guy, and you've got all this sort of stuff here, a lot of this stuff you'd need degrees in. And would it help you? I don't know. You know, you can feel wheel slip because you're fishtailing around at the back. Tyre graphs, if you're driving smoothly, that'll take care of itself. Advanced tyres, even more stuff I don't understand. Ride heights might be good at some point. You know, you've got damper histograms and all that sort of stuff. But realistically, the traction box is probably one of your biggest weapons to know whether you've understood trail braking and whether you're applying it correctly. And you know, depending on the shape of the corner, this line will never go completely round the outside, but you're looking for it to transfer. So, you know, brake, weight forward, tip the car in with the trail braking phase, transfer the weight, keep the weight loaded on the tyres, transfer it through to the loaded side tyres, so the left in case of a right-hander, and then this is the traction portion. So you've held the weight out in the mid corner. You don't want to see it releasing back and then applying traction, because that means your car's bouncing back onto its fore suspension. Then you're jerking it backwards and it'll take off like a drag car. The front is light. You find yourself adding more steering lock. It's all gone wrong. And you think, oh, I'm steering too much, or I'm entering the corner too fast, and it's none of those things. It's the fact that you've maybe been a bit aggressive or jumped off the brake too soon. You know, that's why it's impossible for me to sit here and say you should do this, because your problem will be different to my problem. But the data doesn't lie. It's a graphical representation of your habits, and you can use those habits to compare yourself to the faster driver, be that me, if you want to send me your email address and I'll add you to my team, or get together with your own group of mates. If you've got a spread of speed, you know, everyone can jump on the same track at the same time, and that way you can go to the data and you know that you're looking at like for like. You know, you've all been out for a practice session together, and go and piece it together. Everyone will do something better than the next guy, and you just plot your way around the lap trying to put it together, minimize your weaknesses, and bingo bango, we're all world champions. That's how it works, isn't it? 2 hours of data analysis, 10k driver by next Wednesday. Pretty sure that's how it works. So yeah, in the case of this particular corner, I've overbraked the car just a fraction. So, you know, you just got to unpick the data, just a bit of analysis. We can see I'm doing similar things here. I've lost nearly 2/10 and I'm still crossing my feet over, which is bad. But here I've lifted off slightly earlier. This tiny bit of extra braking has made me lose speed. I'm even wider on the exit, probably because of this little extra blob here. It just helps me slow the car down. It brings this gap together. So, you know, it takes a bit of experience looking through all this data to make sense of the squiggly lines. But yeah, my advice would be just keep at it. Pick your battles. Pick the thing you're doing worst, whether it's the line you're driving, or the way you're braking, or are you braking too late. You can be too slow as well. You do have to be in the ballpark. If you're slowing the car down too much, and I see that happen, and if anyone's interested, I might just go demonstrate while we're here. It's going to result in being in the fence a bit, but I dropped my glove. Disaster. Stick that on. Right, let's go. So I see people release the brake, and then you end up rolling through the corners. I also see one of the mistakes people make, maybe not so much when you get to this sort of car, is they coast through the turns. They come off the brake, they have to put a load of steering lock on, and it means you feel like you can't get on the throttle until you're out of the corner. That's how you drive a road car, as I'm sure you all know. You know, so you brake, you slow the car down too much, you end up turning too much, you roll through the corner, and then you're hammer down on the throttle. You're not energizing the tyres at all if you do that. So if I jump off the brake, I can carry on turning, the car doesn't turn. If I apply a tiny bit of trail brake, I get the control back and I can unwind the lock. So again, too much braking up here, I can turn the steering wheel. If I've got too much brake pressure, I've overloaded the slip angle. I've used 100% of my my tyre's ability to grip to brake, and then I'm also asking it to do 80% of its ability to turn. The maths doesn't tally up, does it? So again, you know, it's where the speed is in a racing car. And I apologise if I'm teaching people to suck eggs, but I think too many times these track guides don't go into the whys and wherefores. So if I now approach this corner again, and rather than releasing the brake and using a whole load of lock, I energise the front tyres, I slowly unwind the lock as I slowly release the brake. Oh, Oh, saved it. But the car grips. The car grips in the middle of the corner because there's more weight on the tyres. So if you find yourself steering too much, look at your brake pressure on the way into the corner. If you find yourself slow in the mid-corner because you're over-slowing, you're rolling through the middle of the corner and then you're booting the car, you're not energising the tyres in the mid-turn. It's all about the tyres. It's the only bit touching the racetrack. Maximum braking. Slowly release the brake as you start to turn. You need your that's the game, isn't it? We want to use 100% of our tyre's ability to grip at every phase of the corner, and that's where threshold braking comes in, braking as hard as the tyre will allow. And in this car, it's a brilliant thing to learn in because you lock up if you get it wrong. It gives you instant feedback, unlike those GT cars that a light flashes at you and you've learnt nothing. You've just like, oh, lead foot, harder, it's fine. I am not going faster, Skip. I'm waffling about theory. I've hit a plateau around here. So I thought I'd just go through some of the basics. So, again, too much brake pressure. Doesn't matter what I do with the steering wheel. I've overloaded the tyre. Too little brake pressure. You've not got enough weight on the tyres to energise them enough to turn. And that's the dance we do. And then the advanced part of that is the on throttle. Is that last bit of the traction, the grip circle. Oh, look, rubbish. Although I think I can get away with saying that I'm demonstrating being rubbish now rather than just being rubbish. I can get away with that, can't I? So this is where, like that run through that section, the car isn't straight up and down. I can't... sorry, that's a motorcycling term. You have to excuse me, the motorcycling terms. If the wheels are turned, you obviously have got lateral load in the race car, so you can't hit the brakes as hard as you would if you were just going in a straight line. So, for example, into here, get off the grass, even though this is a fast corner, the wheel is exactly straight, so I can use all the braking, and then I need to release the brakes as I turn into the corner to keep the weight on the nose, and then I'm balancing the throttle. Up here is the same. I can brake hard into the face, but as I start turning, I need to release the grip. And hopefully you can see that it's not too random with but here I've got load in the car, so I need to start braking, so I have to squeeze the brake more gently because I still need turning. Once the turning's done and I've got the wheel straight, that's when I can hit the brakes hard. I don't know if any of you have been driving around Bathurst in the GT3 cars last week, was it? Coming down the dipper, where you come over the top of Skyline, you're turning over the top of Skyline, but you have to be on the brake. So you get on the brake as the car transitions over the curb, the wheels are straight, you get on the brake harder, then you have to release it for that right hander before the dipper. So, I'm probably labouring the point now, but I feel it's something, people hear these terms and they know they should be doing them. And I just hope I'm explaining what you're trying to achieve. How that translates to the feel through your foot and your steering wheel is down to you. You're the one that's got to go and find the way the feeling works, because all of this loading and unloading of tyres you would feel with your backside in a real racing car, and we haven't got any of that. You don't feel it through the wheel. I've got a pretty fancy wheel, a pretty fancy wheel motor and pretty fancy pedals, and I feel none of it any different to when I was driving on a T300. I mean, I've got a bit more strength, I can catch the slides a bit quicker, but you have all the tools you need. You just have to be able to be smooth and understand the theory.
You're now 1.4 seconds off your best.
Oh, that's shocking. Right, let's see if we can finish with a flourish. So whilst this might be a bit of a washing machine, this place, it's really quite a good place to practice lots of different techniques. And I'm always more than happy to field questions and stuff, like I say, whether that's through the iRacing UK Discord or jump into my own little one. You know, you need to ask questions. You don't know what you don't know, and there's no harm in that. It's, you know, I don't know a lot of things, and collectively we can lean on each other's knowledge, and may we all be better, and then we will all be world champion by Wednesday. And what I'm constantly trying to do with this trail braking and stuff is use the maximum the tyres got available. And this is where the fast guys are fast, because we can do it on the odd corner, and sometimes we can do it on the odd whole lap. They do it every single brake application, every single throttle application. They maximise their mid-corner speed. They are sickeningly good at what they do. I'm blaming it on the track temperature going up. What's the time of day? See, it's 12 o'clock in sim time.
You're currently 0.6.
And it started off at 10 o'clock, so it's clearly the track temperature and not me. So I guess if anyone's got any questions about anything, comments, now's as good a time as any. So if we hadn't have lost half a second in sector 2,
that puts you 0.6 slower than your best.
oh, good run off the corner, hooked up nicely. Torturing the tyres to try and get the time out of it.
You're currently 0.27 off your best.
Shame. There you go, fraction too much brake pressure and lock the front, and therein is the game. It'd be nice if the telemetry worked backwards. Or am I? Hold on, can't see it. Oh, well done me for moving that out of the way. Good form. It's a shame the telemetry doesn't work on the replays, but you know, I don't know. I want the moon on a stick, and I do not know how complicated that is. But locked the front coming through here. Yeah, see, look, just touch the grass. And this is why several points of reference is helpful. We knew the reference from in-car from earlier, that while I had the brake pressure on, I've just dipped the wheel off. So I might get away with that, but I might need to use slightly less brake pressure. But you know, we're getting into the minutiae of how to navigate round the racetrack. So yeah, there we have it, really. Pick your battles, find your weakest area, use some sort of methodical approach, because otherwise you'll just be fishing around, not knowing really whether you're improving or not. Either make notes or keep a mental note of what you do badly, and strive to be better, but in small doses. You know, if it all gets a bit frustrating, if you jump in the car one day and it's just not happening, then there's no obligation, obviously. It's supposed to be fun. I personally believe that working on your own ability and improving yourself, your own understanding of the hobby that we enjoy, is part of the fun. And if that has a knock-on effect to you being faster, more consistent, getting up a split, being in better races, having more mental capacity to be able to fight and not get caught up in trouble, being able to drive the car more smoothly, so you know you might not be quite as fast over one lap, but over an entire race distance you're finishing seconds and seconds quicker. It's all good, isn't it? As long as it's moving forwards, it's happy days. So there we have it. How long have I been waffling? I've been waffling at you for 2 hours and 11 minutes. So I'm all out of... I coined the term yesterday, and I don't know, I haven't heard it anywhere else, I don't think. My talent tank has been emptied, and I need to refuel my talent tank, and I'm trademarking that. I can't afford to trademark it, but... so there we have it. Let's have a quick look at the fast lap again. Whoa, okay. "24-hour endurance race around here, anyone?" Thanks, El. We'll all reconvene at midnight for the 24 hours of peak up round here, shall we? That won't be mind-numbing. One set of tyres. No tyre changes allowed. See if we can get them down to the cords. So there we go. Let me know how you get on. I'd be interested to know how you guys are getting on, whether some, any, all of my tips are helping. If you find something that is working better for you, jump on one of the relevant discords and share it with the group, because we are definitely able to accelerate our learning together. See, there we go. Even on the fast lap, I missed the curb there, which, although I'm shortening the racetrack slightly, is making quite a difference. See, I mean, it looks like I'm not turning the car late enough in that corner, but look, just there, you can see where I locked up before. I can apply the same amount of brake pressure, and yes, I am, what, 2 feet, a foot, 2 foot narrow, more narrow. But if it means I can slow the car down more efficiently, that's the better way. Yeah, I've started using too much curb in there. See, again, you get fatigued, I think, as you start chasing your tail. You start braking too late and just, you know, not driving as smoothly. I'm still not using all the road, but all the laps I was slower, I was jumping up on the curb. So clearly flowing the car through that section, for me, is the fastest way through. Patient in the middle of the corner. Probably lost a bit on the way out. So yeah, there we have it. Think about your car dynamics, work on your trail braking, be smooth with your inputs. Take, look at the data, find the biggest area of weakness and work on that, and you'll start seeing some consistency in your driving. And those are the hardest habits to break, because that's what you do naturally. So they're the ones that you have to constantly chip away at. And beyond that, I will sign off and speak to you all later. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. Bye for now. See ya.